Legacy 2016, and by God's good grace and His wisdom, next year will be Legacy 2017. As a church family, we think it's critically important that we establish rhythms and habits that help us move and grow in our relationship with Jesus, not just as individuals, but as an entire community. And this is a subject that we decided to talk about legacy, or not just finances. I don't want to limit it to that, but if you can think time, talents, and treasures, then I think you will begin to see more clearly how God wants to use those three things to leave a legacy in the world in which we live. Again, legacy is really about us leaving something that outlasts us when we leave. And so we decided a year ago that we would talk about this subject of legacy, of finances, of talents, of time. But there's a few things we didn't have on our radar when we decided to talk about legacy, and which makes it all the more sense for us to talk about it now as a church family. When we started out a year ago at Hope City Church, a year ago, September 11th, we never imagined that we would grow as fast as we've grown. We started out, just a few of us, 6 of us to be honest with you, on Skype calls, talking about, dreaming about, praying about a church that would touch the Cedar Valley in a way that would leave a legacy for generations to come, that we would plant a church that our children's children could be a part of, grow up in, have their life change and change the world. We never imagined that within a year's time, we'd be a church of almost 500 people, yo. That is crazy. That's exciting, but it's crazy at the same time. And so, since we started, I think I've counted like 10 gray hairs. All of them came from you. And so I appreciate every last one of them. I wouldn't change it for the world. The other thing we couldn't have foreseen when we started talking about the series Legacy, and how fitting it would be for this season of our life as a church, is our partnership with Prairie Lakes Church. Some of you are aware of that, and really what it came down to was Prairie Lakes had a campus in Waterloo, and they felt like to continue to reach the Waterloo area and the Cedar Valley, I guess, in general, that it made more sense to partner with Hope City Church. And what we were doing, we both had a heart for the city. They had a heart for the city. It made sense to both of us for them to just continue services in their Waterloo site and invite as many of those amazing folks to come over to Hope City as they would like. And we got a bunch of them. Come on, Hope City Church. I was talking to a friend from PLC who was a part of PLC and now is a part of Hope City Church, and just said, I really feel like we got the best and the brightest, and so we're so blessed to have you all a part of ours. It's just one family now. It's Hope City Church, and so I'm so grateful for that and looking forward to the relationships that are being formed and developed. But we didn't foresee that. The other thing we didn't foresee would be a need as much now is our need for new space, a new building. And so most of you know that we rent space, that we don't own this building, and we didn't do the decorations. So some of y'all are like, I love the decorations. I go, well, I'm glad you do, because I didn't put them up, and I can't take them down, because if I could, I know I'm just playing. But we rent space from a ministry called I Hope Ministries. The guy who owns the building and the ministry, the founder of it, his name's Mike Peters, is a dear friend of mine, a dear brother in the Lord. We've been friends for many, 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 many years. But you just need to know that if you're here, you're going to see I Hope. I don't want you to confuse that with Hope City. We are two completely different ministries. We have two completely different emphasis. We both love Jesus, but what they do is not an endorsement, nor private nor public, from Hope City Church. An example, last week they had a conference. We did not endorse that conference, privately or publicly. Whatever happened there, that is under the umbrella of I Hope, and I Hope does what I Hope does, but it has nothing to do with Hope City. All that to say, the third thing we didn't foresee is not only a need for space of our own. Again, I kind of joked at the first service and said, I feel like I'm living with my mom. You know what I'm saying? Like, I want my own space so I can do my own thing. And but we just have been waiting and asking God, show us where and when. And I got some good news. We're this close to landing our home. And so some of you know the business team and the pastoral team have been praying. I've walked through personally maybe 30 buildings in the Waterloo, Cedar Falls area, 30 buildings. And the team, not just me, but the team. And we're this close to finding a home. I think we may, by the end of the year, be in a new home, a new building. And so give Jesus a hand clap of praise, Hope City. Woo! Come on, somebody. And so we are greatly excited about that, and we'll be talking about that in the weeks to come. You need to know this. For us, we will redirect our resources into people, programs, and property for the sake of reaching people for Jesus. Hope City Church, if you're with us for the first time, second, or third time, you need to hear this. I'm going to say it almost every week, and it needs to get in your thinking. Get that thing a part of your heart. And it's this. Hope City Church is a church in the city, of the city, and for the city. We're a church of the city. We want our church to look like Waterloo. And I'm looking at Hispanic and white and black and Asian and black with a little bit of white. And I'm looking at all of y'all, and that makes me happy. It should make you happy. It makes me happy. It makes Jesus really happy that all his kids are together. We are a church in this city, which means we're committed as God provides. We're going to be in this city. And then thirdly, we're a church of the city. We're a church for the city, which means we're internally centered, but an externally focused church. You got to catch that. So in other words, we're not going to pack our programs or our life together with programs that get you in a building. I'm not going to do that. That's counterintuitive to the mission of Jesus. But rather, I'm going to empower and equip you to make a difference and not just a dent and to terrify hell. That's my job. That is my job. I want to, as one preacher said, I want to plunder hell and populate heaven. That's my job, and that's your job, and I'm excited about that. And that's what this series is about. So anyway, I would ask that you guys be praying for us as a leadership team. We've got some meetings coming up in the next week and a half, that will help us kind of decide if that is the property that God is providing for us. I'm excited about it, and I'll kind of keep you guys kind of abreast of what we know when we know it, and then you will know it, and we'll all know it together, and we'll be one happy family moving along. All right, let's pray. Let's jump right on in. We're talking about legacy. If you're taking notes, at the top of the header, you can put living in light of eternity. Living in light of eternity is my focus today, is what we'll spend our time talking about. Hope City Church, pray with me, and we'll jump right on in. Jesus Christ, we love you. Thank you for your word. Your word is truth. We love that you have called us to be a part of your family and a part of your kingdom. That you've called us to join you in the mission of making disciples and changing the world. Thank you for this city. Thank you for this family. Thank you for our guests, the people that are with us for the first time today. May they feel at home. May they, for a moment, get the vision of, man, this is a community of people that I can not only grow with, but that I can be a part of in changing the world. Father, it's all for you. We love you more than anything else. Jesus Christ, it's in your name we pray. Amen. Amen. Well, if we're going to talk about the subject of legacy, which I'm passionate about, I'm 36 years old. I've got two kids, one that's 21 years old and one that's 9 years old. And I'm finding myself, the older I get, I'm thinking more and more about what I'm leaving behind and not what's in front of me. Now, I've got more time in front of me than I've got behind me. Now, that's not true for all of us. And so when you make that threshold, whatever it is in your mind, you start living differently. And I want us from the very beginning, if we're not living in light of what's in front of us, then we'll lose track and be solely focused on what's right here and present among us. And so I want us to be a church of people. I want to encourage you. I believe the whole purpose that you were created in your mother's womb by God, the reason that you were born is because God's got a plan to live with you forever in eternity, which means we have got to, with God's help, live in light of eternity. That what's in front of us is what matters the most. It's what we're living for. This is right here, y'all. This is just a dress rehearsal. The real play starts there. You got 70, maybe 80 years if you're strong, but we all will say goodbye, and we will all cross the threshold, and we all will spend forever somewhere. And I happen to believe the Bible's true. God has a son. His name's Jesus, and through his cross and his sacrifice alone, not my good works, but his death has made a way for me to live with God and some of y'all forever. That's good news. So if we're going to live that way in light of eternity, if we're going to kind of calculate and really maximize what matters most, I think we've got to settle a few things. We've got to wrestle through a few things. All of us have to wrestle really at the gut, at the core of us. At least three things. There's three things that we've just got to settle right now, today, and be done with forever. Because here's the truth. If what you treasure most comes with a price tag that you think is too high, you'll renegotiate the terms. If what you treasure most comes with a price tag that seems to be too high. Let me tell you the different way. When you get married, that girl you love, she was nice and neat and you was so happy, and she got a little bit of crazy in her you didn't see before you said I do, and now you're ready to renegotiate the terms because what you treasure most, the price tag seems too high to pay. So if you love Jesus and he matters most to us, but there's some things Jesus is going to ask us to say and do, that price tag is going to get high. And if you don't settle the issue right now, what you're willing to pay for, then you'll be a man or a woman in negotiating and bartering. And I want you to make a good investment to live in light of eternity. I want you to leave a good legacy. I want on the other side you to say, I'm glad for the way that I lived while I was still here. So today we're not talking about money, we're talking about investment. We're not talking about finances, we're talking about legacy. And part of that is connected to our finances, but it ain't solely square tucked away there. 3 things you've got to settle in your heart if you're going to leave a legacy in light of eternity. The first one is what happens next. First thing you got to answer. You can write that down if you're taking notes on the back of your worship guide. What happens next? We've all got to answer that question because next is coming. And let me tell you this, the way that you answer what happens next determines what you do. It directs how you live. How you answer what happens next, it directs the way that you live. It ultimately determines what you do while you're here. The way you answer that, if I think this is it, well then let's party and have fun. If I believe there's a life after this one, well then I better get ready for it. It's going to direct the way that I live, the way that I spend my time, money, resources, friendships, and families. That's going to direct everything because I know after 80 years, I'm going to bite the dust by God's good grace and live with him forever. We got to settle that. What happens next? If you don't think nothing happens next, then you're wasting your time coming to this building. Because this building can't get you there. Only one person can get you there. His name's Jesus. But if that is true, then this is one of the most important days of your week. One of them, not the, but one of the most important days of your week. Because this is where you get with the family, get reconnected, get retooled, refurbished, and equipped to make a difference. Because one day, and what happens next, you're going to be glad that you did. Second thing you got to answer if you're going to live in light of eternity, for what happens next is you're going to have to answer what's most important to you. You can write that down. What's most important to you? Because here's the truth. What's most important to you is where you'll invest your best. Whatever's the most important to you is where you will, what matters most is where you'll invest your best. What you consider to be the most important thing or what matters most to you, it is where you will invest your best. And if you can get a vision for eternity, if you and I together, Hope City Church, if we can look and say what happens next is what matters most, then it will determine the way that we invest our best. You start understanding your times, talents, and your treasure. While they're good and great, you can enjoy them now, but what really matters most is what happens forever. So I want to take Matt, who's a video guy, and go, Matt, you got a great gift, a talent for looking at things, and it's great that you have an ability to capture moments, but can you capture moments that make people's lives change forever? See, he's going to take his talent, he's going to use it for what matters the most, because him filming a video is going to connect with a 13-year-old who thinks life's over and is suicidal, and they're going to watch it on Facebook and go, well, maybe there's hope for me today. And he's gonna use his gifts, his time, his talents for what matters most. See, he's investing in that person, and one day that young boy at 13 is gonna walk up to Matt in heaven and go, you don't know me, and Jesus told me you're the guy who made the film. I want you to know that day I gave my life to Jesus because that film you made, thank you very much. Every little thing you do matters. If you can see it, it'll change the way you live. Now, I ain't having this conversation about time, talent, and treasure because you're not a generous church, because you are. Matter of fact, you're one of the most generous churches I've ever come across. I tell my friends and they're blown away at the generosity of Hope City Church. So this isn't a, let's get in the game. This is a, y'all are in the game and let me throw some gasoline on the fire of a church that's leaving a legacy that will change the world. I believe with all my heart, this church, by God's grace, will change the world that we are a part of. Third thing we got to settle when it comes to leaving the legacy, living in light of eternity, we got to answer the question of what we have. See, this is an important question. It's kind of undergirding this series because here's the reality, Hope City Church. What we have is an entrustment, not an entitlement. You got to catch that. You can write that down. That expands past your finances, it's your friendships. What you have is an entrustment. My son, who's 9, my daughter, who's 21, it became very clear to me at a young age that they were an entrustment to me, not an entitlement. See, they don't belong to me, they belong to Jesus. And so I'm going to tell you, like I told the guy when I rented my car the other day, I'm going to drive it like I own it. I ain't going to drive it like I stole it. See, let me say it a different way. Driving that car, I knew it wasn't my own, so there's certain things I couldn't do that I would have done in my car because it didn't belong to me. It belonged to somebody else, and at some point it was going to return to the sender. Your friendships, your family, those people are an entrustment to you. Your finances, they're an entrustment to you. The Father said, I'm going to give you this much money. What you going to do with it? How are you going to use it to change the world, enjoy it, have some fun, eat some ribs? That's all great. Invite me over, please. When you do that, make those ribs, at least make me a plate and hook your boy up. But what we do with what we have, we've got to see it as an entrustment. We're like, you don't own anything. Like, how you going to tell me I don't own it? I'm telling you because I know the one who made it, and you don't own nothing. I worked hard for it. No, God gave you the mind to think and the hands to work. I'm a self-made man. No, you're not. If God chose not to wake you up, you can't make yourself wake up in the morning. Who you playing with? Your next breath is a gift. Take it and say thank you. He owns everything. So if we're going to leave a legacy in light of eternity, we got to settle that issue. God, everything I have is yours. It changes the way that we interact with what we possess, whether it's finances, whether it's people, whether it's opportunity or influence. It does not matter. What we have is a gift. So once we settle that, the question then becomes, what am I giving it up for? Then what is mine? What can I have? What can I cherish? Well, here's the great news, the good news that Jesus Christ is your reward. Jesus Christ is your treasure. It's the greatest gift God could ever give to you was Jesus. The reason you were born was for Jesus. When he knit you in your womb, Jesus said, Pop, give her blue eyes and give her blonde hair. I want a blonde hair, blue-eyed baby. And then he said, that one over there, I want her curly hair, dark, mocha skin with a raspy voice. When she sings, Father, when she sings, I want my heart to rejoice. Make her that way. Everything was created for the glory of Jesus. Everything was made for Jesus. You were made for Jesus, which means if no one else sees you, notices you, or ever loves you, my goodness, my Jesus does. My Jesus does. See, the reality is that we've been coached in believing in the church, unfortunately, that heaven is our reward. I'm waiting for the sweet by and by. Beloved, I got great news for you. Heaven's not your reward. Jesus is your reward. And you go to heaven because that's where he is. That's right, you can clap for that. Let me tell you why. If God gave you heaven as your reward, what he is saying is there's something better than himself that he could give to you, and that is called the sin of idolatry. The greatest thing God could ever give you is himself. One of my favorite heroes in the Bible is a man named Paul. Paul was in this prison in Philippi, in Rome. He's writing to a church in Philippi, this book called Philippians. He's there, he's suffering, he's lost almost everything that he has. I'm talking about leaving a legacy, but living in light of eternity. I want you to get a vision of it. I want you to see yourself forever with Jesus and go, oh, I'll give everything for him then. And if that's not the vision, your vision for eternity must start and end with Jesus. And everything we do is motivated by the fact I'll see him one day. And if that's not the vision, I'm afraid that when the price tag comes too high, we'll renegotiate the terms. I'll go that far. I won't go that far though. God's asking too much of me. Oh my gosh. If you knew what he wanted to give you. I like this picture. You might be seeing it's a cartoon. It's a little girl with a little teddy bear in her hand. Y'all seen that picture on Facebook? She's got a little teddy bear in her hand, and Jesus is down on one knee, and he got a big old bear behind his back, and he holds his hand out. He's asking for that little girl's teddy bear, and she's afraid to give it to him, but she don't know what he got for her. If we don't get a vision for eternity, when God asks you for your little, you'll be afraid, but only if you knew he wants to give you so much. Paul has a vision for eternity. Paul gets it. He sees it. He goes, my goodness, what's coming next is far greater than what we have in the present. Here's what Paul writes in light of that. Philippians chapter 3. If you got a Bible, you can turn there. If not, it'll be up on the screen. If you need a Bible, we've got them right over there for you. Philippians chapter 3, verse 7, here's what Paul says. But whatever was an asset to me, Paul says, whatever I had, not just money, relationships, influence, opportunities, whatever I had, whatever was an asset to me, I counted it as loss for the sake of Christ. He didn't say it was loss. He said he counts it as a loss. There's a vast difference. He said, I'm counting it all as a loss. Everything I have, my pedigree, my livelihood, everything I possess, I'm counting it as a loss. Why would you do that, Paul? Well, Q, I'm glad you asked. It's for the sake of Christ. Well, that's a good answer, Paul. Verse 8, here's what Paul says. More than that. You go, more than that? He says, more than that, I count all things as loss compared to the surpassing excellency of knowing Christ Jesus, my Lord, for whom I have lost all things. I consider them rubbish, that I might gain Christ. Paul says, when I see Jesus, everything I have, I surrender. I count everything I have as a loss. I'm not asking you to give everything to the church. I'm asking you to give everything for Jesus. Paul goes on and he says, this is true. This is true. Not only is Jesus my greatest treasure, not only have I given everything away for Jesus, but Paul says, Jesus gave everything away for you. For you. For your son. For your daughters to be. For this city. Jesus has held nothing back that will be needed for impact. And he provides it through his people, but he's first provided it through himself. 2 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 9. Here's what Paul says about Jesus. And for me, my desire to be like Jesus, that means I want to do what Jesus did. And here's what Jesus did according to Paul. 2 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 9. Paul says this, you know the generous grace of our Lord Jesus Christ. Though he was rich, yet for your sakes he became poor. I love that Hope City Church a year ago took our riches, thousands of dollars, and said, we're never going to see a penny of this money again. Would this church go to Mazatlan? Would you take our riches and would you give it to the poor? And here's what Jesus did, and here's what we did last year, and here's what we're going to do every year, and we do it every Sunday when we take up an offering. Here's why Jesus did. He did it. He became poor so that by his poverty, he could make you rich. This is the essence of love. Love does not demand what it can get, but love is looking for what it can give. Jesus says, oh, I love you. I'll give everything I have to benefit you. I look at Jesus' love for me. I go, Jesus, I want to give everything I have to benefit you. And he goes, well, there's a world around you that you can love in my name. Will you join me in my mission? One of my favorite people in the Bible, when I think about this idea of living in such a way that leaves a legacy, that lives in light of eternity, that leverages our lives. I want to take everything God's given me. I want to hold it loosely, open hands, and go, Lord, how will you use my influence to impact the world? So when a guy comes to me and says, Q, I know you, I trust you, this guy is looking for a job. I want to leverage my influence in a way that impacts that man's life. When a girl from our church family named Emma, she was at Panera Bread about a month ago, and the guy was in line looking for food and some gas, and she looked in her pocket and went, wow, I forgot to pay tithes this Sunday, and so she's telling me this, and she's kind of going, I forgot, I was like, girl, don't look at me. I was like, that's between you and Jesus. And so, but here's what she goes, I've got a little extra money. Let me take my riches, this man that's poor, and let me make him rich. Love looks for what it can give, not just what it can get. Does that make sense? So it makes sense when we look at Jesus that we see the essence of love in someone who gave way more than he's ever asked to take. As great as Jesus, though, you go, Pastor, that's Jesus. That's God's son. I mean, come on now. Is there somebody else I can look at? I go, there is one of my favorite people in the Bible, a woman named Mary. I got to share a story with you. And my prayer would be, by God's grace, as I'm sharing her story, that as I'm sharing it, you would, in your chair, whether you're a Christian or not, you go, I'm not a Christian. I just came to church. I don't know. That's good. I'm glad you're here. Thank you for trusting me to let me talk to you for a few minutes. And whoever brought you, thank you so much for letting me talk to you. Can I just, as I'm sharing her story, would you just consider your own life? If you are a believer, would you consider your life while I'm talking and go, God, how are you asking me to be like Mary? Because I believe Mary is an example to all of us. And so let's read it. Mark chapter 14, looking at living in a way that leaves a legacy. But to do that, we have to live in light of eternity. Mark chapter 14. Mark 14, verse 3, says while he, that he in the context is Jesus, while he, Jesus, was in Bethany, reclining at the table in the house of Simon the leper, a woman, I believe it's Mary of Bethany, a woman came with an alabaster jar of very expensive perfume made with pure nard, and she broke the jar and poured the perfume on the head of Jesus. Some of those who were present were saying, I can't pronounce the word right now. Yeah, my tongue's tied. You know what I'm saying. You read it. To one another, the word's skipping my mind, I'm sorry. To one another, why this waste of perfume? They were angry about it, is the point. Verse 5, here's what they say. It could have been given, it could have been sold for more than a year's wage and the money given to the poor. And they rebuked her harshly. Leave her alone, Jesus said. Why are you bothering her? What she has done is a beautiful thing to me. The poor you will always have with you. And you can help them anytime that you want. But you will not always have me. She did what she could. She poured perfume on my body beforehand to prepare me for my burial. Truly, I say to you, wherever the gospel is preached throughout the world, what she has done, it will also be told in memory of her. What's happening is that Jesus is a few days away from being crucified and dying for the sins of the world. And he goes and visits his friends. And while he's there eating with them, talking with them, boom, breaks in the door a woman named Mary. And Mary's got this alabaster box. It's made out of alabaster. It's a very expensive box. And it's got this perfume in it that's worth a year's wages. So this one little box of perfume, it doesn't have a screw top and you can't squirt it. It's sealed shut. And this perfume's worth 1 year's income. So take your year's salary and put it in a little bitty box about this size full of perfume. Now why is that important? Well, because for Mary, as a young Jewish girl, her father would have given her that box of perfume. I've got a daughter that's 21 years old. I can imagine me going to Kaylee and saying, Kaylee, here's a box of perfume. It's very costly. It's pure. It's the highest quality. It's EVOO, y'all. It's extra virgin olive oil. It's the highest quality from our Rachel Ray cookers. It's top brand. Why did the father give it to her? For 2 reasons. One, in case Mary never got married. See, this is before a woman's rights. If Mary didn't get married, then Mary's likelihood of a livelihood would have been very slim. Her father worked real hard, invested his money in this box, which for Mary was going to become her legacy in case she never got married. This is Mary's insurance policy. This is all that Mary's got to make sure that she's okay in life. Can you feel it now? It's a year's wait. I mean, this is everything Mary's got in this little bitty box. And the second reason he gave it to her was because in the day that Mary found a man that she fell madly in love with, Mary would take everything that she owned and she possessed in that little bitty box, everything that was dear and near to her, that was given to her by her father. And when she saw the man that she loved, Mary, that box, it ceased to be an investment because she found a man that she trusted who would provide for her and protect her. And that box for Mary then became a gift and an offering to the man that she loved. On her wedding night, she would break that box open and she would cover herself in that perfume on the night that they consummated their marriage. In one moment, Mary looks at Jesus in one moment and says, I have found the man that I love. I'll give everything for this man. I'll sacrifice my future. I can only imagine Mary's friends going, Mary, what are you thinking? This is all that you have. She goes, but I found Jesus, the one that I treasure. My daddy told me, don't give this unless I find a man that I love and that I trust. And well, I found the man that I love and that I trust, who will love me, who will never break me, who will only build me, who's always for me, who's never against me. I found the man that I love, and his name is Jesus. And Mary pours it over him. The room fills up with the smell of her perfume, and they're angry. How dare you give that much money away? How dare you give your life away to Jesus? Some of you are hearing it from your friends. You've changed. You don't hang out anymore. You spend all your time in Bible study. You're giving your money to the church? No, I'm giving my money to Jesus. If I had more, I'll rip it off and I'll give it to Jesus. I'm giving it all to Jesus. And here it is. Here's a legacy. Here's a memory. On the day, 2 days later, when our Savior's pierced through and through, when he's beaten and dragged and jeered and mocked on the cross for your sin and my sin. Oh, she's hanging there. And he breathes in. What does he smell? The offering, the extravagant offering of Mary's perfume. Can Jesus smell the fragrant offering of your life today? Or are we holding back? Have we broken everything that we hold dear for the sake of Jesus? What God asks us to do often doesn't make sense to men. But it is so worth it. Mary's sacrifice, it's a memory. Wherever it goes, wherever the gospel's preached, wherever there's people who are willing to love me and to preach my good news, there will be a sacrifice. If you want to invest your life and leave a legacy, it is costly. It is very costly. But her sacrifice, her costly gift prepared him for his burial. And without it, there is no crucifixion. It has to take place. She has to prepare him for his burial, so to speak, and there would be no us. You investing your life, your little, the truth is your little plays a big role in God's forever story. All of you, all of us can be Mary. All of us can take what we possess, whether it's our time, talents, or treasures, and say, Jesus, it's but a little, but it's yours. There's 4 things that come into view when we think about living in light of a legacy that we need to just wrestle through, settle in our hearts, and begin to really plan our lives around. And the first one that we've really got to settle is where we will invest our heart. See, when you live in light, you can write that down. When you live in light of eternity, you no longer spend your time. You invest your time. You no longer spend your money. You invest your money. You no longer just have friendships, but you invest in those friendships. See, if we're gonna leave a legacy, then what we've got to settle is that we're not gonna love things more than people. We're gonna thank God for things, but we're gonna hold them very loose, because the Lord might tap on your shoulder and go, empty your 401k. He wouldn't want me. You just read the story of Mary. Remember I said you got to settle a few things? You got to settle. What matters most? What matters most? What happens next or right now? I've given out whole paychecks. As a matter of fact, there's a couple in our church. I might have said it already. I'm going to say it again. The man came to me. He brought a bunch of supplies and said, here, I want to donate this because one of the things we're doing, we're partnering with the Waterloo Police Department. We're going to give them bags filled with things that will help people in life. And he bought it all. And I said, well, give me the receipt and I'll write you a reimbursement check. And he said, no way in the world you're giving me a check for this. And if you knew him, you know why I backed down. I didn't pray. I'm going, well, okay, bless you. Because he carries, and I went, bless you, brother. I want to meet Jesus, and not today. And here's what he said to me. He said, I had an extra paycheck after work, and I didn't know what to do with it. Well, I said, well, you could have gave it to me. I could have figured out what to do with it. Everything he has, he's holding loose. His heart's not connected here. I fear that we say on the back of our money, in God we trust, and it's become the only God that we trust. Money isn't bad. God doesn't have a problem when you having money. He's got a problem if money's got you. Second thing we stop spending and we start investing is it's our time. Now, for me, that hits home. Now, I had a confession last Sunday, right? So you can't confess something like that and not do something about it. So I'm throwing a football. I'm sitting down. My boy and I went and got our hair cut. Where's my barber? He's in here somewhere. We hung out for 4 hours in the barber shop. 4 hours for a 15-minute haircut. But it was all good times. You don't go to the barber shop to go for the haircut. You go to the barber shop for the fellowship. So in between haircuts, me and my boys are running around the barber shop playing hide and seek. How you spend your time. Psalms 90 verse 12 says it this way. It's Moses writing. It should be up on the screen. Teach us to number our days that we might present to you a heart of wisdom. Teach us to number our days that we might present to you a heart of wisdom. Your days are allotted and numbered. Yes, they are. All of ours are. All of our days are numbered. I don't want to just live my life. I want to invest my life in what matters most, and that's people. That's friendships. That's making a difference in the world that God's put me in. That may mean for you as a husband turning off the game and getting eye with your wife and saying, baby, how's it going? That may mean for you as a parent slowing down, backing up, putting down your phone, Facebook or Candy Crush, and looking at your kids and saying, hey, y'all, what's going on in your life today? How do we spend our time? And that could mean serving someone or serving somewhere. The third thing we start looking at in light of eternity is our finances. It's our money. It's the stuff that we all work real hard to keep and don't want to give away. I'm not looking. I work hard so I can make money. Does that make sense? The problem isn't do I make money, but does money make me? I want to use everything I have for the sake of God's glory to make a difference in God's world. See, money's not a bad thing. The love of money is the root of evil, not money itself. I need some of you to become multimillionaires. I need you to become a multimillionaire. I need you to make a difference in this world. A poor man can't help nobody but himself, barely. I know, I grew up poor my whole life. I barely had enough for me. There's no way that I could share with you. I need you, if the God's called you, because some of you have the gift of giving. Some of you have it. It's a spiritual gift, literally. The Bible calls it in Romans 12. It's the gift of giving. I think it's Romans or 1 Corinthians 12. It's the gift of giving. We're going to start a legacy team. It's not a ministry for millionaires. It's for those who have the gift of giving. Again, I said it last week. I'll say it again. One of the most generous people I've ever known was one of the poorest people I ever knew, my mother. Money giving, rather, is not about the size of your bank account, but the size of your heart. Okay? Fourth thing is, if we're going to live in light of eternity and leave a legacy, we're going to have to reevaluate how we handle our friendships, our relationships. Here's why. We're going to be friends forever. Let that sink in. Doug, we're going to be friends forever. Consider that. So some of y'all who like, my sister brought me to that church and he was just irritating. I didn't like that pastor at all. Well, you're going to see me forever. You know what I'm saying? It's like, here he comes. Where can I run? There's only so far in heaven you can run from me. I'm going to find you. You know what I'm saying? You can't run forever. We're going to be friends forever. It changes the way, living in light of eternity, it changes the way that I talk to Ben and his grandma and his aunt. Because I know I'm going to see them again one day. As a matter of fact, it should change the way that you guys are interacting with each other. I mean, think about it. These are people you're going to be with forever, guys. How cool is that? So meet and greet time, you're like, oh, I really liked her. I want to get to know her better. Good, do it now because you're going to be friends with her forever. But here's the other part, the more sobering part, is that it changes the way that we interact with our coworkers because we want them to be with us forever. Or your brother, or your sister, or your son, or your daughter, or your cousin, or that man walking down the street that's homeless. I want them to be with me forever. The people on your team, or what, I want them to be with me forever. So that means if I'm living in light of eternity, people aren't just people, but people are the only thing that I can take with me to heaven and be with forever. And so it changes the way that I interact with those people. And I'm looking at it and I'm going, man, I really want you to be with me forever. And the only way that can happen, so that is through Jesus. And so your coworker that's always down and depressed, maybe it's getting a little bit out of your comfort zone and going, hey, it seems like you're going through a hard time. And I'm not trying to impose on you, but we talk about our other coworkers, so we talk, we laugh about other people, but can I have a serious conversation with you? I know somebody who can heal all that hurt you got in your heart. I'm not trying to be religious, but I do know somebody who I believe in a relationship with him can heal that. His name's Jesus. He did it for me. I think he can do it for you. I know if you invite them here on a Sunday morning, they're going to hear how to meet Jesus. Some of you are involved in a missional community. I'd encourage all of you. The best stuff of life happens in friendships. Get in a missional community. In light of today, as the worship team prepares to come up, I would ask a few questions of you all. The first question, I would ask you to ask yourself as it relates to leaving a legacy and living in light of eternity. This is the stuff that fuels my heart. This is what wakes me up. Everything I'm doing, at least, it's in light of eternity. I've answered that first question, what happens next? And everything I'm doing is in response to that answer. So some of you today, you might be here and you go, I've never answered that question, I guess. I never really wrestled through that. I don't know. I just figure we're all good people and we all get to heaven. And you may be a kind person. I don't doubt that. But you can't ever be nice enough to make up for all the mistakes you've made. God's not holding it over your head, wanting to beat you up with it. He's actually he has already provided a way for you to be forgiven for it. He wants to remove the thing that's blocking your relationship with him. That living in light of eternity. He's living in light of eternity. He's there. He's the eternal one. He goes, I want my babies with me forever. And so my son's going to make a sacrifice and pay the penalty for all your sin. And so maybe for us, maybe that's the first step. I'm going, all right, Jesus, I'm ready. So I'm actually going to ask that all of us, would you, whether you know Jesus or not, you may already do, and this may not apply to you, but some of us may not. I'm going to actually ask that all of us would close our eyes and bow our heads for a second. I believe there are people here today that go, I'm ready to answer the question, what happens next? So if you're here today and you're ready to answer that question, here's what I believe. If you go, I'm ready. I'm ready to trust Jesus with my forever. If that's you today, I want to invite you. Would you raise your hand? No one's looking but me. I want to pray for you. You go, I'm ready to answer that question. I'm ready to surrender to Jesus. I'm ready to take a next step with Jesus. Thank you very much. I see you. So I'm ready to take the next step. I don't know what that all looks like, but I'm ready to leave my yesterdays behind me and start new with Jesus, if that's you. Thank you so much. I see you. Maybe some of you are like Mary, and there's things in your life that you need to break at Jesus' feet and turn away from. Thank you very much. Maybe you're like Mary, and you're saying, Lord, I'll break unforgiveness. God, I'll walk away from shame. God, I'll walk away from the pain. God, I'll walk away from it all, and I'll give it all to you, Jesus. I'm trusting you. My marriage is struggling. My relationship is struggling. Jesus, I want to bring that to you. And Lord, would you fix us? Would you help us? If that's you today, would you raise your hand? I want to pray for you as well. No one's watching you. I'm watching you. It's an act of surrender. It's an act of trust. You're just saying, God, here's my hand. You see it.